Welcome to a fresh episode of Kathor Vaani, brought to you by Student Alumni Committee of IIM Rohtak. Today we have with us Mr. Abhishek Banerjee. Abhishek completed his MBA from our college, IIM Rohtak, back in 2013. He is also an alumnus of College of Engineering and Management, Kolaghat, and he is currently a director at Indus Valley Partners. We are delighted to have you here with us, Abhishek, and we are looking forward to an exciting conversation with you.
Thank you for having me here and looking forward to having a very interesting conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, so we'll start with the formal segment. So,
Hmm?
Abhishek, tell us a bit about your career pathway. You started as a system engineer at Infosys, and then, of course, you did your MBA at IIM Rohtak. Then you worked as a business analyst for IVP, and now you're a director at IVP. So, how's that journey been like?
Mhm. So, as you mentioned, right, I started my working career with Infosys as a systems engineer. So, I worked on a few projects basically related to the education domain, and then kind of thought that being a techie, I was kind of getting myself siloed into like just doing tech work. And I mean, you would be already be aware, Infosys being such a large company, there is like a lot of quote unquote division of labor. So you are only responsible for what has been assigned to you. Um, that did not sit well. So wanted to kind of explore other stuff. Basically, the MBA was the path of least resistance. So did my MBA, enjoyed my time there, learned a lot of stuff, and joined IVP as a business analyst. So, uh, and I have been here for almost 10 years now. Started as a business analyst, then kind of got promoted along the way, and currently managing product strategy for our uh, data management suite. Along the journey, right? So over these last 10 years, I have actually worked on 4 products. Um, and 2 of them were product launches. So I launched 2 products at IVP, and the other 2 were existing products that I inherited from others, right? And I mean, I would not go into the details of these various products because they are kind of pretty nuanced and specific to our industry. But let me briefly talk about the learnings from all these assignments, right? So the new products are actually more interesting. So I started with started with a product launch, and um, like any material that you would read about what a product manager does or what are the key skills, you would see that there is a lot of focus on the customer, right? So you have to have customer empathy. It is customer centric product management. Your customer is your god. I do not disagree with any of that, but at the same time, um, like everything in life, this is also very nuanced, right? So you have to you have to understand who your customer is, and at the same time, you have to kind of be able to think independently and be critical in terms of which feedback to incorporate and which to ignore, right? So as like a fresh B school grad, I didn't have that level of maturity. So I listened to everything my customer said, built out something, bombed, like horrible experience. So we kind of worked with one client, and see, I was like a fresh B school grad, right? And the customer was the chief operating officer of a $150 billion hedge fund, right? So I mean, whatever he said was kind of like gospel to me. I didn't know the industry much, so whatever he said was I kind of made that inherent assumption that that is how the industry worked, right? So and we built out that product based on, basically we built out a product for him. He got bought it, he paid me money, but that's where it ended. No one else bought it, right? So what we did was we kind of scrapped it. Then I moved to another product, which actually I inherited from someone else. Um, but the key thing there is to learn from your mistakes, right? I mean, it is absolutely okay to be wrong, make mistakes, right? That is fine as long as you're learning from that. So my third product was again another new product launch. This time we did well, and um, just to kind of pat my back here, that product actually won, I don't know, uh, 3 awards in 2019, two in 2020 during the pandemic, another three in 21, and we are nominated for three more awards this year. Right, so that product really took off, and I would like to believe that all my learnings from the first failed product kind of came in handy here. And now currently I have moved on to another product. So for the last couple of years, I'm managing IVP's flagship data management suite. So that's a different kind of experience, but maybe we'll talk about it later.
Yeah, thanks for your brief introduction. Now, I just want to take you a step backwards. So, in layman terms, who is a product manager for you?
That's a very interesting question, and unfortunately, I do not have a one-line answer for that. Um, so again, if you like Google who is a product manager, what does a product manager do? One thing you would like keep seeing everywhere is the product manager is the CEO of the product, right? So just if you Google right now, you would see that like every second website would say that the product manager is the CEO of the product, which is half truth. Okay, so as a product manager, you have various roles, and the CEO is one of them, and you are not like a full CEO. I'll tell you why. Right, so there is no denying that the buck stops at you. Right, so you are responsible for anything that goes south. You are also responsible for taking all the difficult decisions. You are responsible for driving all the uncomfortable conversations. So in that regard, you are definitely the CEO of the product. At the same time, anyone hardly reports to you, right? So the engineering team does not report to you, the QA team does not report to you, design does not report to you, right? Um, some of the BAs might, but so as you can imagine, in a team of 20 people, at least 15 of them are not reporting to you, right? So that's one. You have little to no say in resourcing. You have almost no say in budgeting. So essentially, you do not have any of those chief executive powers. So you are not the CEO in that regard, right? A product manager does a lot of work without doing anything meaningful, right? So we talked about like the CEO role, right? So let's talk about a few other roles. So you are also someone like the coach, right? So you have the team. They are the ones who are playing, right? Their performance kind of defines the results, but you are there to guide them, right? So that's what a product manager does. You're also like the traffic cop, right? So uh, any given day, you are going to get 100 emails regarding issues, regarding feedback, regarding some marketing blog that you need to complete, right? Or like there are so many stakeholders, and you are kind of the single point of contact, and you are not going to do everything, right? So if there is a product bug, you are not the one who is going to solve it, but you have to be the one to know who is going to solve it, right? So you are the kind of chief router. Things are coming to you, you have to route to the right people, right? So that's the next role. What else? You also are like an interpreter. What do I mean by that, right? So you have to speak at least 5 languages, right? So what are these 5 languages? You have to speak sales, you have to speak marketing, you have to speak engineering, you have to speak design, and you have to speak customer, right? Because you are the person who is liaising with all these various stakeholders. And of course, senior management. You need buy-in from senior management as well. Without that, you are not going to get anything done. You're not going to get people, you're not going to get money, right? So that's the other role you're playing. What else? You are also the janitor actually, right? So anything that no one wants to do, you have to go and do it, right? You have those 100 bugs in the backlog. They're sitting there because there is some issue with the priority. So dev says it is a minor bug, QA says it's critical, and there is an impasse there. You are the one who is going to go in, go through all those 100 bugs, assign the right priority, assign to the right people, and then get the ball moving. Right? If you think about it, a product manager's role is a very easy role because you do not need any specialized skills, right? If you can like think, speak, and write like any competent human being, you can be a product manager. At the same time, it is a very difficult role because although you don't need to be a specialist in anything, you have to be competent in everything. Right? So that's who a product manager is. I hope I didn't confuse you more than you were before you asked this question.
So it's like being jack of all trades rather than being master of one.
Right, right. So
Yeah.
it is like a jack of all trades. So if I had to put in a number, I would say, I mean, think about it, right? So I guess it's Malcolm Gladwell, right, who said that it takes 10,000 hours to be world class in anything. So break that down, 10,000 hours, let's say 50-hour work week. So that's, yeah, so that's 200 weeks. That's 4 years. So you have to spend 4 years to be world class in any skill. And I mentioned 5 different skills at least, right? Sales, marketing, engineering, design, and customer. Customer is nothing but the domain, right? And the domain can be any domain. So let's take only one domain, right? So let's say you are creating a product for supply chain. So to be a master in all 5, you have to spend 5 into 4, 20 years.
20 years. Yep.
Yes, the world has moved on by then. So you cannot achieve that. So what you have to do is you have to be competent. So you have to have some like 50 to 70% competence in each of these. Right? You cannot be world class. And the good news is, you remember B school, we talked about something called Pareto principle. So it actually takes 20% time to achieve 80%. Right? And the other good news is most learnings follow a kind of S curve. Right? So initially it is difficult because you are kind of trying to grasp a new concept altogether. Uh, the key is not to give up there. Then it kind of increases almost vertically, right? And then you again flatten out. So you have reached a level of competence, but then from a level of competence to being like truly world class, to be a subject matter expert, there is a point of diminishing return, right? So where you are spending a lot of effort for very less gain. So as a product manager, you have to smart enough to understand where that point of inflection comes and where you are competent enough to have enough credibility to run your products.
Thanks for your wonderful description of a product manager. My next question is, as a product manager, which is more complex, building the initial product or making updates or changes to the existing product? Also, what are the major challenges involved in these processes?
It's difficult to say what is more complex. Each of these have their own challenges. So that's the thing. So think about it. So you start, so when you are starting with a new product, right? So when you are launching a new product, you start with a blank slate, right? So you can take, so you don't have constraints, you don't have boundaries. I mean, you do have some boundaries in terms of resourcing and budgets and all, but assuming you have enough of that, you do not have any boundaries in terms of your engineering decisions or your UX decisions, right? So these decisions you can take with an open mind, right? However, you have a lot of responsibility. You have your responsibility to your posterity, because whatever decisions you are taking today is going to impact someone 5 years down the line, right? Um, so that is there. That is one, I wouldn't call it a challenge, but of course it is a responsibility when you are building a new product. The other thing is that sometimes you kind of get into a vicious cycle of too many choices, right? So you have so many choices, that you are not sure which is the right one, and whatever you choose, you end up having some sort of cognitive dissonance where you are like, oh, I should have chosen that instead of this, right? So that's the second thing with building a new product. The third thing is actually getting feedback, right? So uh, if you if you are building something new, right, so that does not exist, who do you get feedback from, right? So you have to first build something, a minimum viable product, we call it an MVP, right? And you launch it, only then you get feedback, only then people say, okay, this thing works, this thing doesn't work, right? So till the time you have that MVP ready, you you do not get any feedback from the market, right? um, there are other challenges as well for launching a new product. So you have to kind of a lot of times when you are building a new product, you are also building a market. So you have to define what your market is, because a lot of times the market, let's say, does not exist, right? So you have to define your market, you have to define your revenue model, how are you going to charge for that, right? So these are some of the challenges, but yeah, it's interesting in the sense that you have a lot of um, rope. Now it is up to you whether you use it to build something amazing or you use it to hang yourself. So that's what a new product is. Uh, but when you are working with a product that has been there, that has been in the market, that has kind of stood the test of time, right? So there are certain advantages to it, right? So what are the advantages? So if you are in a, like if you are working in a product that has been in the market for the last 5 years, you can safely assume that at least something it is doing right, right? Else it would have been kind of phased out of the market. If it's still in the market after 5 years, it is doing something right. So you have some working thing that your clients are using. So you have the guardrails, right? You know that I have 50 clients who are using this product. These are the features that work, that make their life easier. I'm trying to build this new feature. If it works, fine. Maybe I'll get 50 more clients, but if it doesn't work, I'll still have those 50 clients, right? You don't have that safety net with a new product, right? If it works, amazing. If it doesn't work, you are nowhere. Uh, so that's an advantage with working with a legacy product. The other thing, of course, is kind of the flip side of what we talked about in a new product, where you have a lot of feedback, right? So you have existing clients, you have existing users, you could try something, you maybe speak to them, this is something that we are trying to build. Will it add value, right? So it can become a more kind of the feedback loop is shorter, right? But what are the disadvantages? Those same guardrails that kind of saves you from falling also stops you from flying, right? So you already have a product with 50 clients, right? Which has like, I don't know, 10 million revenue, right? So now you cannot just scrap everything and build something like completely different, because you have to think about how am I going to migrate all these clients, right? Um, the responsibility I talked about when building a new product, that this is where it comes to bite you, right? So someone took that some decision 5 years back, right? It could have been me, it could have been someone else, but there was a decision that was taken 5 years ago, and that is the constraint that you have to live by today, right? Of course, there are certain, like some wiggle room, but uh, there will be certain scenarios where you know that this is what is the best course of action, but I cannot do this because the system currently is this way, right? So those trade-offs will continually need to be done, right? So that's kind of the key difference between like working or building a new product versus enhancing or updating an existing product.
Wonderfully answered by you. My next question is, as the market has shifted from being product centric to consumer-centric. How has that impacted your work?
I mean, I wouldn't be able to say before I started as a product manager, but I started 10 years back, and it has always been customer centric till then. Since then, uh, I think the confusion comes because we are not always cognizant of who our real customers are. I'll give you an example, right? And let's take that example in more consumer focused product, right? So YouTube, right? You would all know that YouTube recently, not recently, it has all been almost a year now, removed the dislike counter from their apps, right? And there was like a huge kind of hue and cry. I've heard how that is kind of a backwards move, how the viewers would not be able to kind of ascertain whether a certain video is good for them or not, or whether a certain video is worth spending 10 minutes on, right? All those things came up. What you need to do is kind of think about it from YouTube's perspective, in the sense that, like, spend more than 10 minutes on this, you would realize that YouTube thinks that their customers, or at least their primary customers, are the creators, right? And the numbers don't match. Like, they are not even in the same ballpark, right? So YouTube has, I don't know, 2.5-3 billion users, like viewers, and somewhere around 2-3 million with an M million creators, but still they consider the creators as their primary customer. Now think about it a bit more. Why do they think that? So as a viewer, why do I go to YouTube? Do I go to YouTube because the app is smooth, the video quality is good, the suggestions are good? Maybe that, maybe that may contribute to, let's say, 20% of my decision to go to YouTube. But the real reason, the 80% of why I go to YouTube to search a video is, A, there are so many videos there. If I want to search for any video, I know that I'm going to get it in YouTube. And there are so many different creators who are uh, like presenting videos on the same topic, right? So I can look at any, let's say something very controversial, let's say something like the Ukraine Russia conflict, right? I can go to YouTube and I can have, like, form a nuanced opinion by like seeing 10 different videos across the political spectrum, right? So that richness of creator, that is or that richness of viewpoints, nuances, vantage points, right? So that is something that draws me towards YouTube, right? Of course, it really helps that I can see 1080p video, recommendations are good, all those things are value adds, right? But I mean, if YouTube suddenly said that, okay, we don't support 4K video anymore, 720p is the most you get, I still go to YouTube, right? A lot of times when I'm traveling and there is, like, I don't have good internet, videos are streamed at 720p and I see them. There's no problem with that, right? So that is not like a key differentiating factor, right? So that's not a like blocker for me. Neither are the recommendations, right? It's good that I get good recommendations, but even if I don't, I'll search for something, I'll get something, right? So YouTube, of course, there are very smart people there, right? And it is almost blasphemy to kind of comment on their decision making, but uh, uh, they have taken this conscious decision to take this step to, and this removal of the dislike counter has worked wonders for creators. And actually, the latest numbers shared by YouTube says that the viewer engagement has also improved over time. Right? So that is, I think, where the confusion comes in, where we kind of try to debate about product centric versus customer centric. Products are always customer centric. It's just that we have to know who our real customers
That's wonderfully answered. Okay, so my next question is, how is B2B product management different from B2C product management?
The core ethos are actually the same, right? So if you think about the core tenets, we talked about who a product manager is, right? All those various roles I talked about, um, those all apply to both B2C versus B2B. It is on how you go about doing those things. That is where a consumer app versus an enterprise app, right? So those kind of start differentiating themselves. Uh, let's take a few examples, right? So um, from a B2C point of view, you have a very loud feedback loop, right? And the key term here is loud, right? So you launch an app or you launch some update to your app, and you open Play Store, you open App Store, you get so many reviews coming in, right? So you have a lot of feedback. So here the key skill that you will need to have is kind of to be able to differentiate the information from the noise. From an enterprise product point of view, right? That feedback loop is uh, a little more streamlined, right? So your actual users um, who are using the system, you know them typically, right? So the feedback loop is more, I would say, is definitely not as loud. So if I launch a new feature so I work in enterprise apps, right? So if I launch a new feature, in 1 month, maybe I'll get 20 feedback, right? Or like in the best case scenario, 50 uh, in 1 month. And for a product update, you'll get 15, I don't know, in 1 hour, right? So that's the kind of scale we are talking about. So feedback is less often, but at the same time, it is kind of more directed and more informed, and you can engage with the feedback giver, right? I mean, theoretically, you can also engage with the feedback givers in your consumer apps, but it kind of becomes impossible. There are so many people giving you, right? But because the numbers are low here, so there are only 50 people, and 50, even I'm taking a best case scenario, typically it's somewhere between 20 and 30. So I can just reach out to them individually, understand how or why they gave whatever feedback they gave, and take a more informed decision, right? So that's one difference. The other difference is in terms of who is paying you money, right? I'll talk about this a bit more. So there is a concept called KDM, right? So just industry jargon, it is key decision maker, right? So in the consumer app segment, right, in the B2C segment, the end consumer typically is the one who is also taking the decision of whether to use your app or not, right? So let's say Netflix. Whether you want to take a Netflix subscription or not is your decision. So you are the one who is going to use that app, and you are going to take that decision whether you want to take that Netflix subscription. That is hardly ever, like I just kind of always shy away from saying never, but uh, let me go ahead and say it. So it is never the actual end user who is the key decision maker for any enterprise app, right? It is some high level bureaucrat, CTO, CEO, who is taking that decision for people in their teams or in their organizations to use my app, right? So my end consumer and the key decision maker who is going to take the decision whether to buy my software or not, whether, so my revenue source and my consumers are different in the enterprise space, right? So that poses its own challenges, right? So you have to essentially convince both parties. Like a good KDM would definitely take feedback from the end consumers, end users, but at the end of the day, they will take that decision, right? So your products have to be nuanced enough to cater to the consumer's use case, but at the same time, it has to be broad enough to make that KDM happy.
that clears a confusion between the two. Next question. What would you suggest for people who wish to pursue product management from our batches?
Do you want the honest truth?
We don't mind that.
You don't need to be an MBA to become a product manager, right? So I think I told this a little while back, right? So uh, a product manager doesn't need any specialized skill, right? If you can, like, if you are a competent human being, if you have the aptitude, you can be a product manager, right? Um, Having said that, there are a few key skills that are very, very important to become a good product manager. One of them is to be able to learn, right? So you have to learn to learn. If you look at any product manager, right? If you hear them speak, if you hear them talk about stuff, you will be like, oh God, these guys are geniuses, right? Um, so they can kind of read about something and in half an hour talk competently about it. How do they do this? These are geniuses. We can't ever be there. The secret is this is also a skill that you can learn, right? So you have to keep learning stuff. It doesn't matter what you're learning, right? Whatever catches your fancy. Learn about how like a mechanical watch works. Learn about why there are dimples on golf balls. Learn about why there is a flicker when you take a phone from the US and try to capture a video in Europe, right? I mean, you'll get this in YouTube. This happens, right? So learn about whatever you want, but keep learning, right? Keep learning new stuff, because that is what is going to pay dividends when you become a product manager, right? So and there is like two advantages there. One, of course, you're learning a lot of stuff, right? So somewhere down the line you are going to connect the dots, right? And then you are going to use that learning in something else. So that is one advantage. The other thing is you are learning to learn, right? So you are becoming faster in grasping concepts, right? The other key skill is the ability to build credibility, right? Uh, Coming back to my CEO example before, I mentioned that no one reports to you, right? At least, I mean, some BAs would report to you, but most of the team does not report to you, right? So you do not have reporting authority, but at the same time, you have to get things done. Your currency is your credibility. So you have to build that credibility. You have to be truthful, honest. You have to promote others and not assign blame. So like product managers have to live with like a simple philosophy, right? Anything that goes wrong is my fault. Anything that goes right is the team's credit, right? Um, Third thing would be you have to be very, very self-critical, right? And you have to like find flaws with your products. You have to test that out for various edge cases scenarios. Only then your product will improve, right? And so if I kind of bring that concept back to kind of a campus setting, right? You don't have products which you will be testing right now, right? So how do you prepare yourself for that? So other two part, you can do it right now. You can learn new stuff. You can like make a conscious effort to build your credibility in terms of being truthful. So these are skills that you would kind of imbibe in yourself and then you can apply in the world, right? But the third one, the ability to kind of be self-critical and so as a product manager, right? So we live a very dual life, right? In front of the customer, my product is the best in the world, right? Uh, it can do no wrong. It is amazing. But when I'm with my product, this is the worst in the world, right? I can like in my product, I can give you 20 different critical issues that should never be there. So you have to have that level of kind of introspection and be able to be critical of what you're building. Uh, so coming back to how you can do that now, it's very simple. All these projects and assignments you submit, right? Do one thing. So if you have a 12 a.m. deadline, don't complete it at 11:55. Try and complete it at 7:55, right? And those 4 hours, try to evaluate it, right? Forget that you have written that paper. Try to evaluate it. Find holes in it, right? What you will do is you will make your paper better, right? The same thing applies to the products that you are building. Yeah. So these are the key skills that you have to learn. And none of these are any specialization, right? So you don't have to learn any domain. You don't have to be like a guru in finance or marketing or supply chain or accounting, anything, or engineering. So you have to be competent in all of this, by the way. Okay. So you have to speak the languages. At the end of the day, a product manager's job is both very fulfilling and very thankless. So you have to also kind of introspect that that this is something that you would want to do, because this is like a managerial role where you're not managing anyone. So it is, you are an individual contributor, but still you are responsible for the success and failure of something, right? So it's not everyone's cup of tea, but people who like it really enjoy it.
We're done with the formal questions. We'll move to the informal segment. Over to Shreya.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Pat. So to start with, let's talk about college life. So your life during your BTech must have been very different from your life during your MBA. So how
Mhm.
different, and which one did you like more?
Oh God, I have to. So I did BTech at 2005 to 9, MBA is 11 to 13. The life definitely was difficult. I mean, different, not difficult at all. I kind of enjoyed both of them, but it was very different. And neither of them is better or worse. It's just that they were different, right? So, uh, undergrads, you have no care in the world, no money in your pocket as well, right? So, that was a different life. Made a lot of good friendships. At the same time, B school, I had already worked for like 1.5 years, so had some money, could spend on things that I did not need to spend money on. Um, Met a lot of smart people, met a lot of friends here as well. Um, but yeah, I mean, enjoyed both of them a bit differently. Spent a lot of time playing a lot of sports in undergrad, not so much in B school. But again, in B school, spent a lot of time playing other stuff, right? So a lot of computer games and all. So I mean, it's a very difficult question. I don't know which one is better. Neither of them is better. They were both amazing.
Well, that's great. And moving on to the next question, which was one subject that you absolutely loved during your MBA and one subject that you absolutely hated?
Oh, this is a very easy question. I have an answer for this. So I am a very lazy fellow, right? So the one subject I enjoyed the most was corporate finance, because um, I didn't have. So I remember in our, what do you call it, end term, the like final exam in the term, right? That intern test had 2 questions, and you had to write 1.5 pages, right? So I think the first page, the first answer was, I think we had to prepare a balance sheet. So that was 1 page. And the next question was something or the other. I don't remember what, but it was half a page, right? So 1.5 page exam done, full marks, right? So that was amazing. The subject I hated the most, Arpita ma'am would kill me for this, but it was marketing. Um, the reason for that is I, like, we had to write so much in the test to actually get some grades, right? And like, I liked the classes, I enjoyed the classes. It's just that the tests I couldn't, those were horrible. I barely passed, but yeah.
I'm sure a lot of us relate to your struggle of writing a lot during an exam. And I personally know I do. moving on, which one was more stressful for you? Your life during your MBA or your life after your MBA?
Stressful. There are different kinds of stresses actually, right? So um, in school you are stressed about yourself, right? So um, you have, I mean, keeping aside any group projects and all, those are like a really small part of it. But when there is an exam and you have to like study for it, you are, of course, you are never prepared, so you have to prepare for it. um, the stress is for yourself, so you have to kind of think, oh god, if I don't do good in this, maybe I'll not get a job, whatever. um, right, so that is a different kind of stress. Post MBA in the corporate life, the stress is mostly kind of some of it is for yourself as well, but I would say 20% of it is yourself, 80% of it is for other things, for my team, for my product. Finally, it kind of all boils down to you. Okay, but at the same time, there is a different kind of stress there, right? Uh, and for better or for worse, at IVP, we are given a lot of responsibility very early in our careers, right? So as I told you, I started as a BA and I like started building a new product. Right? Knew nothing about how to build a product, right? Learned everything on the job. Uh, but that is not stressful. The stressful part of it is when you do demo after demo and no one seems convinced and no one wants to buy or license your product. uh, that is like a stress. Oh god, I spent so much of the company's money, 5 developers, 2 QA resources, and we have nothing to show for it, no revenue. So that is a different kind of stress, right? So both are stressful, but in different ways.
Completely understood. So moving on, what's currently on your bucket list?
I mean, if there's one thing I would like to do is actually like to do something called Gardening India. So I want to do a drive starting from Leh or Ladakh and going through Rajasthan, Gujarat, Maharashtra, Goa, and then to cover the entire west coast, then go to Kanyakumari, cover the east coast, and then come back, right? Uh, but that's a time-taking endeavor, right? Um, haven't been able to do that. It's just there in the back of my mind. Haven't really planned for it, but yeah, someday.
That sounds like a lot of fun, and I really hope you get to do it soon.
Thank you, thank you. Likewise,
Uh,
I do hope as well.
yeah. So the last question.
Okay.
Had an option to go back in time, would you approach your MBA life a little differently? And if so,
Oh God, that's such a curveball. Of course, there are a lot of things I would do differently, like small things, right? Maybe this subject I could have spent a little more time on. Um, this interview I could have thought about. See, I mean, you guys would have also done interviews, right? So you come out of the interview and like, oh God, this is what I should have told, but the time has passed, right? So yes, there are a lot of things that could have been changed, but broadly, uh, I wouldn't go back and change anything, right? So things have panned out well for me, and it's fine. I mean, you cannot expect to be right all the time, right? So um, people do mistakes. I've made mistakes, and hopefully I've learned from them. But I wouldn't go back. I mean, honestly, if I could go back, maybe I would change those, but I do not wish to go back and change those, if that makes sense.
of course, thank you so much for your answers. Now I'll hand over to Ria for the next segment.
Hi, Ria.
Hello, thank you for answering and so well. And we have learned so much and such insight. We have got so many insights.
You're
So
flattering me. Thank you, thanks a lot.
we'll start with the next round. We have a rapid session round.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah, basically I'll give you a word and you have to say the first thing that comes to your mind. Okay, so I'll start now. I am Rohtak.
I was
Okay.
just kidding.
Okay.
I am Rohtak is sugarcane juice. I'll tell you, I had the largest glass of sugarcane juice ever in I am Rohtak. Like this big, man. I don't know how. I'm sure it was more than 1 liters.
Okay. Okay. Kathor life.
Kathor.
Hostel.
Sorry, hostel.
Yeah.
Oh God, so much fun.
Okay. Library.
Never been there.
Okay. Deadlines.
Are sacrosanct.
Okay. Guest lectures.
Better than normal lectures.
Okay. Mess food.
Okay-ish.
Okay. Exams.
Waste of time.
Comfort food.
Anything I can lay my hands on. Actually, nothing comes to mind. Pizza, maybe.
Okay. Assignments.
Can someone else do it?
Presentations.
I can do that.
Oh. Roommate.
Mohit.
Free riders.
In every project.
Group projects.
Free riders.
Infusion.
Is that the fest?
Coffee breaks.
No good coffee in Rohtak.
Okay. Classroom.
Boarding.
Thank you. That's all the questions of the rapid fire round.
Thank you. I hope I just didn't disappoint.
Oh, you're wonderful. You're
You
wonderful.
better hamper? Like coffee with Karan? No? Come on, I'm disappointed now.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the wonderful session. And we learned a lot. And will surely help us in our coming SIP interviews.
Thank you. Thanks, Ria. Thanks, Shreya and Parth. It was really exciting. Um, I'm doing this after a long time, so really enjoyed it. Um, all the best for your SIP interviews, and for the ones who have already got placed somewhere. Do well, learn new stuff, enjoy the 2 months, and all the best for your future.